Yep. So basically, the Tim Rice version is going to be back in the festival in September.
Didn't know that. I thought it was excised.
Oh, that's
so it's
good.
back in. All right. When you say a certain view, you don't mean an anti-Semitic view, presumably. You mean just a kind of let's all be nice view.
Who knows, Jim? I mean, we don't detect anti-Semitism in this thing. We detect people trying to be nice, but I mean, of course, that is something that is a lot of other people disagree with, whether it's because the word Israel has been expunged, or also because people are messing around with copyrighted lyrics. So we've had everything. We've had coverage, and you may be amused by this, not only from the Jerusalem Post, but also from Broadway News in New York. There you go.
Oh, that's wonderful.
The show should be a sellout. Might be quite short if the songs aren't being sung, but
Joseph's monochrome dream coat.
Richard, thank you. You seem to have earned your money on this one.
Not a problem.
Yeah, Richard McLean from Wellington City Council. 3 minutes to 5, I need to ask you about another awfully strong Twitter reaction when the Minister for Disability Issues, Nikki Wagner, tweeted that it was a lovely day in Auckland at the weekend and she'd rather be out on the harbour than in disability meetings all day. So, offensive or human? What did you think?
I would say a wandering mind.
A wandering
mind. But actually, I have to say, I don't know Nikki Wagner, but I do know a lot of people in the disability community, and I understand her reputation is pretty high. So I suspect it's one of these things where, a poor choice of words maybe, but I don't think the intent was as it's been read.
Labour Finance spokesman Grant Robertson said, "You are the Minister for Disabilities. Show some respect." Actually, come to think of it, just resign and go and be on the harbour. Mojo Mathers from the Greens said, "I really question her commitment to the disability sector if she'd rather be on the harbour than meeting them. If she had just said, I'd rather be on the harbour than in meetings all day..."
That would have been the smart thing to do, wouldn't it?
And then someone might have discovered what those meetings were and gone on Twitter anyway. But anyway,
Yeah,
it would have been
the same effect,
it would be the better thing to do.
Which I think lends wisdom to the thought that it was actually just a careless misuse of words rather than anything more sinister. It's interesting the disability community as yet hasn't come out too critical, I understand. It's been it's fellow politicians who have made capital out of this. If the disability community said something, maybe it would be a different story.
Yeah. Lisa, what is your opinion about this great stoush?
Well, the younger man was with me when I read about the story online, and he was absolutely incensed, but I just thought it was a bit of a thick move, really. It's not a major crime.
As you were saying that and mentioning the younger man, I noticed there's an awful lot of texts coming in, inquiring about that and offering you observations and advice.
Are they from older rich men? Because I'd be interested.
I'd rather not go into all the details, but...
Okay, well, just forward them on to me, darling. You know my address.
Okay. I've interacted with homeless people in central Auckland, says Janine. In fact, a few of those texts too. Almost daily over 4 years, I've talked to them, tried to help. Over time, they've changed. I don't really have time to do this justice, I'm sorry, Janine, but she's basically talking about the need, as you were, to approach them one-on-one and find out the human stories and make that effort. Which
Some kindness.
Yeah, kindness. That's the word of the day, Lisa. Thank you. Lisa Scott, thanks for your company.
Thank you.
And Chris Clark, very nice to have your company too.
Thank you, Jim.
That's us for another day. Thanks, everybody. We're back tomorrow. And Checkpoints. And John Campbell's back today. Checkpoint, coming right up.
Kia ora everyone. Tonight another terror attack in England, London. One person dead, several others injured after a van drove into worshippers leaving a mosque in the suburb of Finsbury. We go there live. Two families of those killed in the Pike River mine explosion win the right to take a case to the Supreme Court. We talk to the families, we talk to Nigel Hampton QC. Team New Zealand ramps up the pressure on Oracle. Team USA, their fourth successive win in the America's Cup. They're 3-0 up. Police released the first pictures of indescribable destruction within Grenfell Tower. And we're in Big Glory Bay on Stewart Island as the oyster cull begins, plus Sir Colin and that statue.
RNZ News at 5. Kia ora, good afternoon. Ko Katrina Batanaho. There's been another deadly van attack in London, this time on Muslims near a mosque. One person was killed when a van was deliberately driven into pedestrians on the pavement, and 8 others are in hospital. A 48-year-old man believed to be the driver of the van has been arrested. Bystanders restrained him until the police arrived. One of those who took action was Abdul Rahman Saleh Al-Maudi, who said the man was screaming he was going to kill Muslims before being tackled to the ground.
Managed to get him on the floor, and then he's saying, "Oh, kill me, kill me." I said, "We're not going to kill you. Why did you do that? Why did you do that?" And then police came after maybe
it took half an hour.
Half an hour. I had to keep him at least half an hour. He was a strong guy. He had a build-up, big man.
Abdul Rahman Al-Maudi. The police are treating what has happened as a likely terror attack. A teenager with a pre-existing brain injury was kept in police cells for 3 nights after Oranga Tamariki failed to find him a bed. The case was called at the Waitakere Youth Court today when Judge Lisa Tremuan refused to remand the 16-year-old back into police custody. His lawyer, Frank Godinez, says his client fell through the cracks with mental health services and Oranga Tamariki and suffered 2 seizures while in police custody over the weekend. Oranga Tamariki says social workers spent hours unsuccessfully trying to find an appropriate bed at the weekend, but one has been found this afternoon at a secure forensic unit for young people in Porirua. Judge Tremuan says this is sadly not an unusual scenario. 2 of the Pike River families have won the right to take a case to the country's highest court. In February, the Court of Appeal dismissed a bid by Anna Osborne and Sonia Rockhouse to challenge the decision that allowed the mine's chief executive, Peter Whittle, to escape prosecution. However, the Supreme Court has agreed to hear the family's claim that the voluntary payment made by Mr Whittle of $3.4 million to them was unlawful. Lawyer Nigel Hampton says the families believed it was an attempt to stifle prosecution. Meanwhile, new footage has emerged showing wooden pallets inside the mine unscathed by fire. It also shows what may be the glasses of Ben Rockhouse, one of the 29 men who died in the 2010 disaster. Mr Rockhouse's father, Neville Rockhouse, hasn't seen the footage before, but he says it shows the mine is safe enough to enter.
Everyone deserves at least one rescue attempt. For technical difficulties or whatever, if they give it a go and they can't get there, then fair enough. At least they've tried. The thing that irks me is that no one officially has been back in there to try and even get into the drift and examine what would be required to go further.
Neville Rockhouse, the father of Ben. The first oysters to be removed from Stewart Island in a bid to stop the spread of a parasite have arrived in Bluff for transportation to a landfill. The Ministry for Primary Industries ordered a cull of the estimated 4,000 tonnes of flat oysters in Big Glory Bay after finding the parasite at 2 farms in the area last month. This morning, the first caged oysters were being pulled up and disinfected before being sent onto a freight boat to Bluff, which arrived in the port town late this afternoon. Their final destination is a nearby landfill where they'll be dumped and covered. A ministry spokesperson, Andrew Sanders, says they'll work 7 days a week until the job is done. The All Black great Sir Colin Meads has been immortalised in bronze. A statue made by Auckland sculptor Natalie Stamiller was unveiled in his hometown of Te Kuiti this afternoon. Despite suffering from pancreatic cancer, Sir Colin made it to the unveiling and he was impressed by what he saw.
Well, it's amazing how much detail she's gone in to get it, because I was just saying even me bootlaces are done up to how I used to lace them up too, so it's marvellous.
Sir Colin says his greatest memory is still being named as an All Black, but he's always feared he'd be injured before he got the chance to play for the team. It's 5:04. In sport, Oracle Team USA skipper Jimmy Spittle says the next 5 days are the most important of the America's Cup campaign. With a 5-day break scheduled, the American syndicate will be working out how to overcome a 3-0 deficit following Team New Zealand's clean sweep of the first 4 races. While major changes to boats aren't allowed, Spittle says they need to find more speed from somewhere.
We will look at every single thing we can. We've got an incredible team on the shore, a boat building team, design engineering. We have been here before. We've got 5 days to respond now, and everything is up for grabs.
Jimmy Spittle. The war of words between the All Blacks and Lions continues to heat up, with Lions coach Warren Gatland challenging referees to stop New Zealand's off-the-ball blocking. Gatland has raised the issue with officials before the first test in Auckland on Saturday, and he'll meet first test referee Jaco Paper on Friday to discuss his concerns further. He says the amount of off-the-ball play and holding back that's going on is frustrating. Gatland believes the Lions have been denied several try-scoring opportunities in their matches so far, especially in the win over the Māori All Blacks at the weekend. And American Brooks Koepka has won his first major golf championship with a 4-stroke victory in the US Open at the Erin Hills course in Wisconsin. That's the news.
New footage gives new hope for Pike River families.
It's highly likely that they are my boy's glasses, and where his glasses are, he's not far away.
A new refugee wants to bring her family to New Zealand.
I haven't get discriminated here. I feel like New Zealand is a beautiful country. I have been received with arms open in a big hug.
But will we get the maths on housing right in time?
They've stuffed this one up incredibly badly. This is the single most important challenge facing the country at the moment, the housing crisis. And this really is just a total schmozzle.
Join us, Guy Aspinall and Susie Ferguson. Morning Report, weekdays from 6.
Then on 9 to noon, changes to kindy hours. Could parents be out of pocket and out of time with their kids? And after 10, the evolution of beauty. Ornithologist Richard Prum explains why Charles Darwin once said peacock's tails made him feel sick. Join me, Catherine Ryan, on 9 to noon after Morning Report on RNZ National.
Met Service weather through to midnight tomorrow. Northland, occasional showers, possibly heavy tomorrow. Auckland and Coromandel Peninsula, often cloudy today with isolated showers. Fine at first tomorrow, but a few showers possible from afternoon. Waikato to Taranaki, also Bay of Plenty in the central high country. Mostly cloudy with isolated showers, becoming fine this evening and fine tomorrow. Gisborne to Wairarapa, cloudy periods and isolated showers spreading north today, becoming fine tomorrow morning. Whanganui to Wellington, also Nelson and Marlborough, a few showers developing with a southerly change this afternoon and evening, fine tomorrow. Canterbury, cloudy periods becoming fine tonight. Bulla and Westland, showers clearing south of Hokitika this afternoon and elsewhere tomorrow morning. Fiordland, Southland and Otago, mainly fine. A few showers about Fiordland tomorrow, and the Chatham Islands, a few showers clearing tomorrow. It's coming up to 5:08 and you're listening to Checkpoint.
Thanks, Katrina. We begin tonight in London yet again, where there has been another suspected terror attack. That's not quite an official term yet. Theresa May says it's, quote, a potential terrorist attack. The facts certainly speak to terrorism. A van rammed into worshippers leaving a mosque in Finsbury Park. Witnesses say it was deliberately driven at them. A statement from police short time ago said, and I quote, the investigation of the incident is being carried out by the Counter-Terrorism Command. One person is confirmed dead, 8 others are in hospital, others suffered minor injuries. Witnesses on the street described what they saw.
Basically drove on the pavement, coming straight towards all the Muslims, and as he's coming to them, he hit all of them, and I think one of them died.
One of them died straight away.
One of them died, and then the rest are in a bad condition.
So can you give me, how many people did you see lying injured on the floor, try and remember?
About 7, 8.
And they were seriously injured?
Seriously injured. And then as the police come, they moved all of us quick.
It was about 1:10 this morning. I was coming from the shops, and I saw a large crowd of people on the pavement. I learned after that a van that was standing out by the traffic lights was the van that mowed the people down.
At the moment they're saying there's about 3 people dead. You know, I mean, people have in the mosque praying, it's Ramadan, we don't need this, you know. I don't know why they're doing this, so upsetting, sorry, because we don't know. Sisters, brothers of ours, we're all, I don't know, I'm just really upset, sorry.
Let's go now live to our UK correspondent Natalie Powell. Natalie, thank you for joining us at 6:10 in the morning. Obviously, the Prime Minister, the police will speak later in the morning, but there is a real sense that this is terrorism pure and simple, isn't there?
Yes, in fact, the Prime Minister has actually said that the Metropolitan Police are actually treating this as a terror attack, a potential terror incident, of course, and it certainly has memories of incidents that have taken place here in the UK not so long ago,
Yes.
just a couple of weeks ago, of course, with that attack on London Bridge. But it does seem to, according to eyewitness reports, and of course these are not confirmed yet, it does certainly seem to have been very much targeted at the Muslim community, with 11 worshippers leaving a Muslim welfare centre in North London, which is not far from the North London Mosque in Finsbury Park, which is a very well-known, very large mosque, in fact. And yeah, we certainly getting the sense from eyewitness reports that this has been targeted towards the Muslim community.
Yes, we heard a lady talking in that piece we just played of eyewitness accounts saying there were 3 dead. I want to confirm the official death toll is 1 dead, 8 others in hospital, and someone arrested, Natalie?
Yes, so police confirming that 1 person has died. As you said, 8 people have been taken to hospital. We don't know what condition those people are in. Presumably, given the extent of this attack, they could potentially be in quite a critical condition. But as you said, 1 person has been arrested, a 48-year-old man. And according to reports, again, these are not confirmed, but from reports at the scene, it would appear that this particular man was detained by people on the streets before the...
I think we've lost Natalie there. I think we've just lost her. She's cut out. So let's update that. As Natalie was saying, a 48-year-old man arrested. This is being investigated by the Counter-Terrorism Command. Theresa May, the British Prime Minister, of course, is calling it a potential terrorist attack. It seems very clear that these were people targeted by the van driver. 1 dead, 8 injured, and we will go back to the UK later in the program. Let's head home now, though, with the time at 12 minutes past 5, and thank you for being with us on Checkpoint. The Pike River explosion and the decision to not prosecute the mine's former CEO, Peter Whittle, is to head to the Supreme Court. This follows the Court of Appeal's decision in February to dismiss a challenge by Anna Osborne and Sonia Rockhouse over a $3.4 million payout to the families of mine victims. The appeal effectively portrayed the money as Peter Whittle buying his way out of prosecution. The appeal court rejected that, saying the payout was voluntary. Whittle had initially faced 12 health and safety charges. Now Nigel Hampton QC says the Supreme Court has agreed to hear the women's claim that that payout was effectively unlawful.
The one point that we are now taking to the court is, was the Court of Appeal wrong in saying that this was just a voluntary payment on the side, or are we correct in the argument for Anna and Sonia that this was indeed a bargain between Mr. Whittle on the one hand and WorkSafe on the other, and was it an unlawful bargain because part of the bargain was payment of $3.41 million, which in effect was to make the prosecution go away. We say that was a stifling and unlawful agreement, and that's the issue.
Nigel Hampton QC will speak to Nigel Hampton at length later in the program. Meanwhile, Pike family members are saying newly released footage taken inside the mine 6 years ago shows strikingly little fire damage, contradicting assertions that the damage was so great bodies would have been burned beyond recognition and even retrieval. Neville Rockhouse, who worked in the mine with his 2 sons, one of whom, Ben, was among the 29 men killed, is backing other Pike families and insisting the footage was never shown to the Royal Commission into the tragedy.
No, it wasn't. No. I sat through the whole Royal Commission as well, and no, I never saw it, and I haven't seen it in any of the film that's been released. I believe that you can see in that clip there's, from what I've heard, there's a body as well, which makes sense. The body wouldn't be far away from his glasses.
Would Ben have been in the area of borehole 44 at the time, do you think?
Yes, he was. That was his workplace. That's where he was working at the time. They'd had difficulty with water in the morning, and that's why he stayed back. He was supposed to be at my place for tea at 5:30 p.m, but because they didn't have water in the mine in the morning, him and Josh stayed back. Once they got water reticulating again, they stayed back to do extra work to catch up. And unfortunately, he never made it.
Neville, this is a very difficult question, and I apologise for asking it because I know how tough this is for you, but do you believe they are Ben's glasses, and if there's a body nearby, do you believe that's Ben?
Yes, I do. And apparently in that same clip there is a shape that needs to be enhanced, but it looks like Ben wouldn't, if his glasses got knocked off his face during an explosion, and if he was conscious, he would have put them back on his nose because he's blind as a bat without them. And he's nearby. I'm certain of that.
What does the condition of that wood crate, which seems on the face of it to have no burn scars of any sort, tell you about that area around borehole 44?
Well, it brings into question the entire story that was fed to us over a long period of time, including the mines rescue person who came forward after 6 years of silence, saying that they were down there retrieving and salvaging robots in and out of the mine. At the time we were told this thing will be sealed up, everyone's burnt beyond recognition, there'll only be bone fragments left, it's done and dusted, there's no coming back, it's going to be sealed forever. And within 3 months you've got mines rescue personnel going down there rescuing robots for salvage money. But and not going on up the drift to have a look, see if there's any loved ones or bodies remains up there. And in the area where Ben is, that area, pallets of wood, even the radiant heat would sort of char it. But no burn damage at all, John.
Neville, can you be as explicit as possible with me about the kind of language that was used to describe the condition the bodies were in? What were you told?
We were told that the majority of the remains would have been burned beyond recognition, and the intensity of the heat would be bone fragments left only, if that, and it would have been a forensic. I had to sit through, John, having my DNA taken by a police pathologist and my wife at the time as well to use for identification purposes, which is a pretty traumatic sort of a situation anyway. And those that perhaps where the fire did not reach, they would be mummified, and but now apparently there's a significant amount of footage that shows bodies are in the drift. They're there, they're waiting to come home. I call upon the government and John Key to keep his government's promise that whatever it takes, irrespective of the cost, the boys will come home. Everyone deserves one attempt. They've never had an attempt. They go and rescue robots, but they don't go and rescue the men.
Neville, I've seen that telephone footage of John Key talking at that meeting that day. Can you remember what he said to you? You were there. Can you remember as well as possible what the Prime Minister at the time said to you about getting the boys out?
He said, whatever it takes, irrespective of the cost, we will bring your boys, we will bring your loved ones home to you. And that was a commitment. And we took him at his face value as the Prime Minister of New Zealand. And then after that, it's just been a political kick the can. Each successive person in charge has kicked the can further down the road for someone else to pick up. Here we are, 7 years later. Now we've got further evidence that there are bodies and remains, and no one has ever attempted to go in and recover those bodies. We've got people who have volunteered to, mine rescue experts to do the job. All they wanted was their accommodation and a bit of food and airfares, and they'd come and get the job done from Australia. So, it's beyond belief. It's just dreadful. It's not a good look.
Neville Rockhouse talking to us earlier. Nigel Hampton will join us on Checkpoint to talk about the Supreme Court action later in the program. It's 5:19. You're with Checkpoint on RNZ. Breaking news, the Waikato police say they have arrested a 45-year-old local man and charged him with murder in relation to the death of Kim Richmond of Arohena. Kim Richmond's body was recovered from a vehicle in Lake Arapuni in Waikato last Thursday. She disappeared on the 31st of July 2016. The man who has been charged will appear in the court in Hamilton tomorrow. Coming up on Checkpoint, police have released the first pictures of indescribable destruction within Grenfell Tower in London. We're in Big Glory Bay as the Oyster Cull begins, and several thousand people attend the unveiling of a statue of All Blacks legend Sir Colin Meads in Te Kuiti. Don't forget you can text us 2101, you can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ, Facebook Checkpoint with John Campbell, or email checkpoint@radionz.co.nz. We enjoy your feedback and we are very grateful for it. Team New Zealand 4, Oracle 0. That's the race tally in the America's Cup. The points tally is 3-0 for reasons that speak to the holders' ability to somewhat unlevel the playing field. Still, not even Oracle with its money and Jimmy Spittle with his audacity can disguise the fact the defenders have been outraced by the New Zealanders so far. The so far is important, of course, lest we forget. Oracle were down 8-1 in 2013 and won 9-8. In short, Team New Zealand have an advantage both numerically and psychologically, but Oracle has been here before. So too has our reporter Todd Nile, who's in Bermuda.
A rousing send-off from the fans set the scene for a day in which Team New Zealand romped away from Oracle both times, making a clean sweep of the Bermudian opening weekend. The verdict was equally rousing.
Fantastic, unbelievable, yeah, wonderful.
Were you here for both days?
All days, yeah, we're here till the end, yeah.
Did you imagine that that was going to be possible 4 in a row?
Always believed it was possible, great to see it happen, yeah.
What about yourself? Were you worrying about the comeback today?
Not at all. Been there before. All good. All good.
What do you think Oracle could have up its sleeve in the next 5 days?
Not a lot, I don't think. They've got nothing left. Not like last time. They can't even ask for Ben Ainsley to come this time, can they?
That was awesome. We're not counting our chickens though. We've got eggs but no chickens.
4 chickens is pretty good.
4 chickens is pretty good.
Did you worry about today, what they'd come back with?
No, quietly optimistic on the way through, but we've been there before, so yeah, we'll see.
Oracle's comeback from match point 4 years ago is still seared on everyone's memory. Its skipper Jimmy Spittle is looking back to that time for inspiration.
Well, I think it's a great opportunity we have in our hands here. I mean, San Francisco, when we reached this point, we were pretty much at match point at 8-1. We had a lay day to try and get out there and make some changes. We're not even halfway through the competition. I mean, these guys are 3-0 up. And we have 5 days to make some changes. We've got a great team ready to go. We're going to have a really good discussion. It's not the first time we've had to go through this process. And if there's any team I'd like that you want to be in when you're in this situation, it's our team.
His fans are buying that line.
Obviously, the results are a little disappointing, and I'm hoping that maybe they can make some adjustments during the coming week to the boat, because it seems like right now Emirates has the better boat.
Do you think they can do a comeback as they did in San Francisco?
Well, they're going to need to at this point. They've definitely put the odds against themselves, but I'm hopeful that they can.
The New Zealanders' speed, both off the start line and during the race, has stunned some cup watchers, considering the clear fortnight Oracle had to evolve its boat. The helmsman Peter Burling is taking the 3-0 score in his stride, saying it won't be hard to find new ways to improve.
Well, it's not something new for us. I think, Blair and myself and the 49er, kept pushing forward even though we were ahead. And now we've got plenty of things to work on. It's something that there's a massive list, and I'm not really going to go into what they are, but now we feel like we've still got plenty to come, and we're still on such a steep part of the learning curve. I mean, if you think where these boats will be in a couple of years' time, it'll be pretty impressive, so we've still got plenty to work on.
Do you fear that next weekend could be completely different?
It could be completely different, could be very similar, and I think the one thing we do have, we've got an amazing resilient bunch of Kiwis, and they're ready for whatever's going to be thrown at us.
With the boat's major components having to be of a uniform design, it's not clear where Oracle can work to find more speed. However, they've always said the team to make the most of the next 5 days could be the one to win the Cup. The equation to remember for next Sunday, Team New Zealand needs 3 more wins to clinch the old mug. Oracle Team USA needs 7. In Bermuda, mo te hotaka o te ahiahi, ko Todd Nile tēnei.
5:24. The ministry charged with caring for the country's most vulnerable children left a teenager with a pre-existing brain injury in police cells for 3 nights because they couldn't find him a suitable bed. The case was called at the Waitakere Youth Court today after Judge Lisa Tremewan refused to remand the 16-year-old back into the police cells after he had 2 seizures over the weekend. This is an exclusive report. It comes from our Auckland court reporter, Edward Gay, who was in the youth court today. Edward, and is beside me in the studio now. Thanks, Eddie. This teenager obviously has some serious issues. What can you tell us about what happened here?
Well, yeah, I spoke to his father this afternoon. He's tried everything. At 6 months old, he said his son fell out of his walker, and then at 2 years old, he was in a car crash. From his early school years, there were behaviour issues. He was diagnosed with ADHD as a 5-year-old. He's been expelled from schools. He's got a history of violence towards students and teachers. And his father, he's been injured as well. He's had a broken arm. He's tried to homeschool his son, but he says his son's violence has escalated. And his father told me that basically his son's fallen through the cracks, and he's worried something more serious may happen. He says his son needs hospital treatment.
So this is a kid against whom the cards are very firmly stacked. He spent 3 nights in police cells. How was 16 years old?
Yeah, that's right. And police were called to a brain injury clinic where he was based, and this teenager was alleged to have set a chair on fire and be threatening a security guard. Now, Senior Sergeant Terry Burke, he told the court today that a constable, while this teenager was in the cells, a constable had to be taken off duties 24 hours eyeballing this young man just to make sure he was safe. The police didn't risk using CCTV, for example. He had 2 seizures while in custody. Both times had to be taken to Waitakere Hospital by ambulance. He appeared on Saturday before a JP, but despite a social worker trying for hours, they couldn't find him a bed, and he was back in police cells Sunday night as well. The sergeant told the court the police didn't have the facilities to care for the young man, but Oranga Tamariki, formerly known as Child, Youth and Family, they wouldn't take him, and nor would mental health authorities. He said the teen shouldn't be in police cells, let alone over a whole weekend.
So Oranga Tamariki wouldn't take him, mental health authorities wouldn't take him, they couldn't find a bed for him, they were looking for a bed?
Yeah, this a representative from the ministry was in court today, and she spoke to Judge Tremewan. She said that it was very hard to place this teenager because of his needs. Judge Tremewan responded to that. She said that may be the case, but it wasn't an unusual situation for Her Honour to find a teenager put in police cells because the ministry can't find a bed.
Well, the judge said that she's come across this before.
That's
so
right.
So she said that very explicitly. Right.
She did, and she said, actually, she gave a scenario. In the last 2 months, she's had a 14-year-old girl spend 3 nights in police cells because the ministry couldn't find her a bed. RNZ, you might recall, yes. Last week, we reported a 16-year-old spent 3 nights in police custody because, again, the ministry couldn't find him a bed. I've sat in court myself in the youth court where this has happened as well. Only once media are in court can a bed is then found. That's happened. We've reported that previously. Judge Tremewan said on this occasion she didn't question the hard-working ethic of the social workers, but she said where the resources don't match up with the needs, there are limitations, and she said this policy needed to be closely considered. The teen's lawyer, Frank Godinay, he said his client had fallen between the cracks of the ministry and the mental health services. The ministry has managed to find him a bed today in a secure mental health unit in Porirua this afternoon. That's in a facility called Ngā Taiohi, and the matter will be called before the court again at the end of this month.
Edward Gay, who was in the the youth court today. Thanks, Eddie. I really appreciate you giving us that information. A cull of oysters from Big Glory Bay on Stewart Island has begun in a bid to stop a fatal parasite spreading to the wild fisheries in Whaiwhau Strait. We've talked about this at length, of course. The Ministry for Primary Industries has ordered 14 farms at Stewart Island to pull up their oysters because they've become contaminated with the parasite. Our reporter Maya Burry was there as the removal got underway this morning.
Nestled away in the northeast of Stewart Island and surrounded by a rugged, untouched landscape, Big Glory Bay's waters are peppered with black buoys, marking the oyster and mussel farms that fill it. MPI estimates there are about 4,000 tonnes of oysters in this remote bay, but now every last one of them is to be pulled out. The Ministry's operations manager for the Stewart Island oyster removal, Andrew Sander, was out on the water this morning as the first oyster cages began to be removed.
As you see, we've got two vessels in the sea behind us. One is a barge and the other is a freighter. So the idea is that when the oysters are pulled up from the sea, they go onto the barge. They're then reconnected to the freighter and lifted into the hold of the ship. Once they're inside the ship, they're sprayed with a chlorine-based solution to ensure that they are clean.
Once the oysters and the cages have been disinfected and wrapped in plastic, they are being shipped via an indirect route to Bluff to avoid the parasite spreading to wild oyster beds in Foveaux Strait. Andrew Sander says all the oysters and the cages are destined for a landfill near Invercargill. He doesn't agree that the ministry has acted too slowly by only starting the removal operation now, more than 3 weeks after the parasite was detected at 2 farms in the bay.
Look, at the end of the operation there'll be an extensive debrief. From that we'll be looking at ways to improve our processes. There'll be a way to perhaps quicken up certain processes. At the moment I'm pretty satisfied that we've done everything we can to ensure that we do the job properly from day one and not make mistakes as we go through.
There are a number of farms in the bay that use lines which mussels and oysters are sewn onto, and they're harder to remove than oyster cages. Some farmers expect the work will take months. Mr. Sander says at the moment a timeline isn't clear.
It's probably too soon to answer that question, but certainly we hope by the end of today or tomorrow we'll have a better indication on how long it may take. So we're just doing the one trip today. The expectation and the hope is that we may be able to eventually do 2 trips a day.
Mr. Sander says while today is a positive step towards stopping the spread of the parasite, it is a difficult one for the marine farmers of Big Glory Bay, who have put time and energy into building up their businesses.
My heart goes out to the affected people. You know, it's very easy for us to sit back and say, oh, we're just going to lift some cages. We've got to look at the human side of things, and MPI is very, very conscious of that. So we have support available for the farmers.
Andrew Sander says MPI was meeting with some of the affected farmers today to discuss compensation. He says community meetings are also being held in Bluff and Stewart Island this week. In Bluff for Checkpoint, Maya Burry.
Coming up to 27 minutes to 6, you're with Checkpoint on RNZ. Thank you for being with us. Coming up on the program, a statue of Sir Colin Meads is unveiled in Te Kuiti. 3 days of national mourning have been declared in Portugal for the victims of catastrophic forest fires, which have claimed at least 62 lives. Anusha Bradley is standing by with business news, but before all of that, Katrina Batten with the headlines.
A van has ploughed into worshippers, leaving a London mosque, killing at least 1 person and leaving 8 others in hospital in what is Britain's largest Muslim organisation says is a deliberate act of Islamophobia. The Muslim Council of Britain says the vehicle hit people as they were leaving the Finsbury Park Mosque, one of the biggest in the country. The incident is being treated as a potential terrorist attack. A 45-year-old man has been arrested and charged with murder over the death of Kim Richmond. The 42-year-old's body was found in a ute recovered from Lake Arapuni in South Waikato last week. Kim Richmond disappeared in July last year. A teenager with a pre-existing brain injury was kept in police cells for 3 nights after Oranga Tamariki failed to find him a bed. Judge Lisa Tremewen failed to remand the 16-year-old back into police custody today when the case was called at the Waitakere Youth Court. His lawyer, Frank Godinay, said his client suffered 2 seizures in police custody over the weekend. A bed was found this afternoon at a secure forensic unit. There are renewed calls for window washing to be banned after a man was seriously injured at a South Auckland intersection this morning. Kerry Burridge of Business Manukau says window washers weave through fast-moving traffic and it was a matter of time before someone was hit. The government says it has no intention of conducting any more large-scale pay equity talks, given there is now a clear process others can follow. It comes after unions today lodged a claim for community mental health workers with the Employment Relations Authority seeking pay parity with their colleagues in the disability and aged care sectors. The Prime Minister, Bill English, says the coverage of the historic settlement was determined after negotiations between the unions and the Ministry of Health. Those are the headlines. I'll be back at 6.
Thanks so much, Katrina. Let's turn to business news now with Anusha Bradley, who's beside me in the studio. Nice to see you, Anusha. Consumer confidence at a 2-year high.
That's right. So consumers are pretty optimistic about the year ahead, but they are slightly more nervous about the current situation at the moment. So today we had the Westpac McDermott Miller Consumer Confidence Index, quite a mouthful. It surveyed 1,500 people in the first 2 weeks of June. It found that the index had gained just 2 points to 113.4 in the second 3 months of the year. That was after a slight dip in the first quarter. So consumers are a little bit jittery about the current situation. Fewer people think now is a good time to buy a big ticket item, and that's really a story about rising interest rates. Well, they're not risen yet, but that's on the cards. And there's also concern about the slowdown in the housing market as well. So Westpac says people are more upbeat about the economy in the next 12 months. Why? Well, that's because the agricultural sector is doing a bit better. That's going to boost the rural communities and economies. Also, the recent increase that was announced to family benefits, that's going to boost incomes as well for some families. So we had a bit of data today about the services sector. That was the BNZ Business New Zealand Performance of Services Index, which rose 5 points in May to 58.8. Why is this important? Well, the services sector accounts for 2/3 of the economy, so it's a good indication of how well things are going. Activities, sales and new orders all picked up strongly, but employment was down just a little bit.
OK, Kiwi Property is asking shareholders for $161 million. Who is Kiwi Property? What do they own?
Yeah, so they own a lot of commercial properties, including a number of shopping malls around the country.
Right.
The jewel in the crown is, of course, Sylvia Park in Auckland, the biggest mall in the country.
And also the biggest impediment to traffic in the known universe, right?
I won't make a comment on that one.
I just did. OK, so what do they want $161 million for?
Yeah, well, exactly. They want to use that cash to reduce its debt and also fund its expansion, especially in Auckland. It wants to spend about $200 million expanding Sylvia Park and other places as well. So last year you might remember the opening of H&M and Zara at Sylvia Park. They were hugely successful, and they want more of that. Basically, they want to attract more big name brands from these big international companies. It's planning to build a 20,000 square metre, what it calls a retail galleria, to attract these big
galleria.
Sounds fancy.
Posh shopping, Anusha.
It does. They want more of these, and apparently it's attracted a big department store already, and it's talking to several more big retailers, but it won't say who. Right.
For people who don't know where the hell this is, it's down the southern motorway, kind of Mount Wellington, isn't it? Sort of between Mount Wellington and Panmure?
Mount Wellington, Big destination shopping. I avoid it at all costs.
Yeah, the traffic is just hellish. What else are we talking about? What happened on the markets today?
Hey, a bit of excitement on the markets today. The NZX 50 hit an all-time high. It's a lifetime high of 7,593. The market closed just a little bit lower at 7,592. The ASX Australian share market is just 15 points higher at 5,791, and on the currency markets the dollar is buying 72.76 US cents, 95.59 Australian and 56 pence.
Anusha Bradley, thank you so much, Anusha. We appreciate it. Let's head south from where we are in Auckland, north for many of you, of course, to Te Kuiti, where several thousand people have descended on the town, the King Country town, for the unveiling of a statue of All Blacks legend Sir Colin Meads. Locals and Lions supporters, remember the Lions are playing in Hamilton tomorrow night, were among those who gathered to pay their respects to Pine Tree, who was also in attendance. Our reporter Joe O'Brien was there.
Sir Colin Meads may be ill with pancreatic cancer, but he retains a sense of humour if today's public appearance is anything to go by. He had this to say on the larger-than-life bronze likeness of himself once it was unveiled.
Well, it's amazing how much detail she's gone in to get it, because I was just saying, even me bootlaces have done up to how I used to lace them up too, so it's marvellous.
He did have big feet.
Sculptor Natalie Stamila spent 2 months working on the statue, which she says was an honour. Sir Colin's brother and former All Black Stan Meads asked the heavily pregnant sculptor about the research she undertook for the work.
I don't know, but I've done a lot of reading.
And you well, Natalie?
I am well. I'm holding together. Yes, I've got a week to go. So it was touch and go for both of us, Colin, whether we'd be here.
Organiser Yvette Ronaldson from legendary Te Kuiti says the $500,000 statue was paid for by sponsorship, donations and fundraising, but she says its worth should be seen in the tourists the statue will bring to the town.
Definitely. I think people love Colin, and he is famous not only in New Zealand but worldwide, and I guess that was one of the reasons behind doing it, is to bring people into our town, so we're confident that it will bring people into Te Kuiti.
Sir Colin Meads' daughter-in-law Jo was one of those who helped prepare the Gallagher Meads exhibition, which also opened today. She says they wanted to do something for the Lions tour, and the project grew from there.
It was like, okay, let's get some memorabilia. Brian, our mayor, said let's do the statue, which was cool, and I was like, let's do a little exhibition, and it just grew, and I've spent hours, because I knew there was stuff at home here at Vernon Collins, so I've spent hours with Colin and Stan, and we got it all out. And basically last week there were 6 of us in here just working.
Proud Te Kuiti locals gathered for the occasion, including Suzanne Downey, the principal of St Joseph's Catholic School, which Sir Colin's children and grandchildren attended.
It's absolutely huge. He's a big man. He's a fantastic. He's known for his humility and his generosity in our area, and he and his family, put a lot into this area in terms of their sporting and their cultural commitments and supporting the young and the youth. And we just think we're so proud of him.
Lions fans, including this Scottish supporter, say Sir Colin's legend is still known in the British Isles and around the world, and they wanted to come along to pay tribute to him.
Welcome to Big Meads. My goodness, why would we come here today? Big Meads, a big stadium being unveiled. What more we want to be here?
Rugby legend, so glad to be here.
No matter what age you are in rugby, old, young, that man's a legend.
Te Kuiti has been renamed Meadsville to mark the occasion. For Checkpoint, ko Joe O'Brien tēnei.
Weren't those Lions supporters wonderful? It's coming up to 18 minutes to 6. Police have released the first pictures of indescribable destruction within Grenfell Tower, warning some of those who died may never be formally identified. 58 people are now confirmed dead following the fire, which engulfed the 24-storey apartment building last week. The news comes as British Prime Minister Theresa May announced homeless families would each be given £5,500 to rebuild their lives. Bridget Burke reports.
Chilling images show the charred interior of one of the Grenfell Tower apartments. Twisted metal and debris litter the blackened floor. The remains of a washing machine, an oven and what was once a mattress reduced to springs, the only indication someone used to live here. When the camera turns around, what used to be the bathroom, no wall separating it anymore. The bath is now a burnt-out shell, the rest of the bathroom unrecognisable, and holes in the walls where the windows blew out and show the force and power of last week's blaze. Police released the footage saying that the shocking extent of the country's worst fire since World War II may mean some victims will never be able to be formally identified. Emotions ran high at a Notting Hill church where mourners paid tribute to the 58 confirmed lives lost.
159! 160! 160! 160 plus!
This volunteer, reading from a poster, screamed the death toll was many more.
Day 5, Sunday, 18th of June, 2017. Educated estimate, count, residents, council approximate, 400 to 600. Less estimate, 500. 108 hospitals and hostels. Dead, confirmed, 68. Equals 324. Where are they? Where are they? Who is doing the maths? Are they dead?
London's Mayor Sadiq Khan said the community was angry and a national response to the tragedy was needed.
Angry not simply at the poor response in the days afterwards from the council and the government, but the years of neglect from the council and successive governments. There is a feeling from the community of they've been treated badly because some of them are poor, Some of them may come from deprived backgrounds. Some of them may be asylum seekers and refugees. There's a feeling that the council and successive governments don't understand their concerns and frankly don't care.
Opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn criticised a $5 million fund announced by the Prime Minister Theresa May for the survivors of the tragedy.
There are a lot of empty buildings and quite luxurious buildings all around Kensington. Listen, Kensington is the country's richest borough, and we have this area of poverty around Grenfell Tower. Surely to goodness, if we believe in communities, we can and must put the resources, the money in there to help those families in their hour of need. They should not be sleeping in shelters for weeks and weeks on end.
Standing at a tribute wall to the victims, the Conservative leader of the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea Council, Nick Paget-Brown, urged people to stay calm and said authorities were doing what they could.
It's not true to say there are no councillors around. It's not true to say Kensington and Chelsea Council is not evident. I understand complaints from people and those will need to be addressed, but that will be addressed through the inquiry.
The fire has continued to raise questions about the safety of other apartment blocks, something Sadiq Khan said would be addressed quickly.
It's not good enough. People who live in tower blocks across London but around the country being sick to death whether their tower block is safe. We need to know as soon as possible whether those tower blocks are safe, and there's to be as much transparency as possible. It's not acceptable that any inquiry may not be as full and open as they could be. Local residents, the community needs representation, and I'm pleased that there will be a full and proper public inquiry with representation from the community. It's crucial, though, that we have an interim report this summer.
A minute's silence for the victims will be observed across the UK at 11 this morning. For Checkpoint, Bridget Burke.
And in Portugal, 3 days of national mourning have been declared for the victims of catastrophic forest fires in the centre of the country. At least 62 people have died, many of them burned in their cars as they tried to flee in the mountainous district 200 kilometres northeast of the capital, Lisbon. Hundreds of firefighters are battling the fires and are warning the death toll is likely to rise. The ABC's Anne Barker reports.
Aerial footage shot from a drone shows the tragic aftermath of Portugal's devastating fires. In eerie silence, the drone hovers over a burnt-out forest hours after the bushfires had swept through. A section of highway is littered with burnt-out cars that were stopped in their tracks as the flames raced across the road at a speed so fast no driver could escape. Most of the dead were in vehicles trapped on this one road. Those who survived described the ferocity of the flames.
Almost instantly you saw the fire on the right-hand side of the car, and within 10, 15 seconds at the most, the wind that the fire created, it leapt across to the other side, and within 30 seconds it was sort of to the right, to the left, to the back of the car. You had no option but to keep driving into the fire.
These pine and eucalypt forests at Petrogal Grande in central Portugal have burnt before, but never like this. A lightning strike is believed to have started the blaze on Saturday, but the combination of scorching heat, gusty winds and tinder-dry forests have created the worst possible conditions. Entire villages have been evacuated. When I saw the wind, it looked like it was a storm and fireworks, says this woman, and I told my husband this is the end of the world. I put the car inside and went to the bathroom to lie on the ground with masks, and I only came out at 3 a.m. Many residents now have no idea if they even have homes to return to.
We were inside the house. The fire was all around us. The firefighters came to get us out because we could hardly breathe anymore. As for whether the house burned or not, it must have burned, for sure.
At the height of the tragedy, 900 firefighters were at the scene. Of the 156 separate fires counted, 11 are still burning more than 24 hours later. So far, 61 people have been confirmed dead. But Portugal's Prime Minister António Costa says the death toll will rise. Unfortunately, the situation is not yet concluded, he says. The fire is still active. The wind, as we can feel it, has restarted some of the fronts. And at the same time, there's an ongoing and painful work of identifying, village by village, the possible victims. Mr Costa says it's the worst tragedy in Portugal in living memory. And Portugal's President, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, has declared 3 days of national mourning.
A nossa dor neste momento não tem medida.
Our pain at this moment has no measure, he says. Neither does our solidarity with the relatives of the tragedy of Pedro Grande. More firefighters and water dumping planes are due to arrive today from Spain and France. And with no sign of rain, authorities fear the danger is still far from over.
That report from the ABC's Anne Barker, 10:30 to 6. The government says it has no intention of conducting any more large-scale pay equity talks. Unions today lodged a claim for community mental health workers with the Employment Relations Authority, seeking pay parity with their colleagues in the disability and aged care sectors. From July 1st, aged care and disability support workers will get hefty pay rises as a result of that historic pay equity settlement, while those in mental health will get nothing. Our reporter Catherine Hutton spoke to Auckland mental health worker Poliana Alo.
I just want the government to recognise mental health support workers and mental health as a real issue in New Zealand, and they need to address it. We can't keep putting a blanket over it and saying that, there's no issues and it's not really happening. Working in the sector, I've been in the mental health sector for 8-9 years, and it's been real for me since day one. When I first applied for the position that for this organisation, I had no idea about mental health. I knew that people suffered from depression, schizophrenia, but I didn't realise how many people, especially in the Pacific community, that suffers from mental health.
What do you think then is the importance of your role?
It's really important because if we work with our clients every step of the way of their journey, of their wellness journey, while they're in our organisation, if you take us out, our support workers out, you're leaving it to the DHBs, to nurses and clinicians to deal with this issue, and they're struggling already. Can you imagine if we didn't have support workers? Can you imagine what the impact of the pressures it would do to our DHBs, to our clinicians?
What impact would it have?
I guess that they'd have to start dealing with community issues that we currently take over in that role. I guess they'd have to probably hire more staff. More people would be working around the clock because we'd have so many crises.
The Prime Minister, Bill English, though, says the government is now bringing in pay equity legislation. He says employees can also opt for a negotiated solution if they don't want a statutory one. He says there was nothing deliberate about restricting the coverage of the historic settlement, which affected 55,000 people and cost $2 billion.
Well, the coverage was determined, as I understand it, by negotiation between the unions and the Ministry of Health. So it's not to say it was perfect, but there had to be a pragmatic decision made about the effective boundaries of that claim related to the core pay equity claims that have been lodged in the court. So I think that kind of anchored it. I don't think you should see it as a strong view about who should be able to think about pay equity claims or not. It was just a practical limit. And of course, as soon as you draw a limit, there are groups just outside it, and couple of those groups have put their hands up in the last few days. We don't intend to conduct another sort of large-scale negotiation. We were dealing with that set of legal claims. There's a set of undertakings been made around those claims relevant to the settlement, and our next step is to bring in the new framework so that everyone can see what the rules are and they can proceed. But as I said, there's always the other option where employers and unions representing those workers may decide to negotiate their own settlement in some relationship to the pay equity settlement we've made.
Bill English talking earlier in the day, 5:30 to 6. In the past hour, Solid Energy has released a statement saying its unmanned exploration project of the Pike River mine is on track, and an assessment of technology capable of going down a borehole is complete. It follows the release of footage from within the mine, which seems to contradict official reports that the 2010 explosions caused an inferno that destroyed everything inside. The footage shot in 2011 shows rubber hoses, wooden pallets and what appears to be a pair of spectacles, which Neville Rockhouse, whom we spoke with earlier in the program, believes belong to his son Ben, who perished in the disaster. Joining us now is Solid Energy CEO Tony King. Tony, it's nice to have you back on Checkpoint. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Good evening, John.
Good evening. Extensive media release come out, and I've only just got it, so I've read it at high speed. I just wonder about the timing, and I need to ask you this question: have you received a phone call from Wellington today? Someone connected with the government in any way saying, "We want you to front foot this. We don't want the Prime Minister on this subject all the time." Have you been asked to do this?
No, we haven't, John. We've done this on our own initiative. We've obviously seen what's come through the media, and particularly commentary around, the video footage, which, showed that there was limited damage in some parts of the mine, and we thought it might be helpful to provide some commentary about that from a more technical point of view. And secondly, there'd been comments made around the apparent lack of progress on the unmanned exploration project, and we wanted just to let people know how that is.
Okay, can we start with the second thing first? Where are you with this robotic re-entry, so to speak?
We've had a couple of project meetings where we've reviewed, firstly, the available technology that had been proposed to either the government or to the families or to ourselves, and we sort of looked across those options to see which we felt had the most potential.
So you're still looking across the options? Gosh, this is taking a long time, isn't it?
No, that was at the first stage, and what we've subsequently done is we've identified one that we thought had quite considerable potential. We formulated a sort of an initial proposition of doing a trial into the top end of the drift using that, and did a risk assessment around that, and that identified a number of advantages that proposal has, and it identified a number of issues that we are now working through.
Can you clarify, what is the top end of the drift? Is that the near end of the drift, closest to the entrance, or is it the far end of the drift where it's thought there may potentially be bodies?
It's the far end of the drift is where we want to explore.
Okay, and you now believe you have the appropriate equipment to get up there?
Well, we had an engineer from the manufacturer present, and it was quite encouraging in terms of the capability and application of this machine, which is different from all of the other robots in that it can be inserted down a drill hole to more precisely the area that we want to look at, and then it can roam some distance from that point.
Okay, if that can happen and it can be inserted down a drill hole, why on earth are we having this conversation 6.5 years after the fact? Now, I know that early on there were robots sent in and they got stuck and that went awry, but surely if you can go in from above, it should have been done before now.
Well, this proposal was requested of us by the government at the end of, formally at the end of March. So it's not 6.5 years from our point of view.
No, it's certainly not. But it's 6.5 years from the family's point of view, right? And it is a statement of fact, 6.5 years from the incident. I guess we should talk to the government about that. Have you painted yourselves into a corner? I recall, for example, your chairman, and correct me if I'm wrong, saying he would resign if you got the kind of exemption required to send people into the mine. Is Solid Energy, who owns Pike River, and it's very important to remind everyone you didn't own Pike River at the time, is Solid Energy excessively committed to not sending people in?
No, we made our decision based on information which has been widely publicised back in 2014. That decision, there's no reason to change it, and we haven't changed it, but we're moving forward with this unmanned exploration project, which we think can provide some really useful answers to the family and potentially to investigators about what is in the drift.
There's no reason to change it in the context of the fact that you know, and I know because I've spoken to them, there are mines rescue personnel queuing up to go up that drift. That will be another media organisation wanting to talk to you. There are mines rescue personnel queuing up to go up that drift, and we have spoken to people prepared to do so. In fact, Neville Rockhouse today told me that he would be prepared to do so. His son, Daniel, told me he would be prepared to do so. Mines rescue experts tell me they would be prepared to do so. And you have had people in the drift working there safely. All of this is new information. What makes you think that what you thought in 2014 still stands?
No, I don't think any of that is new information, John. The people going into the drift took place in, I think it was at 2011 when Mines Rescue.
I think the extent to which people were working in the drift was not known publicly until very recently, was it?
Well, it may not. I apologise for that. I thought I'd turn that off. The extent to which people had been into the drift was known to the industry and to the company. And we were well aware of that at the time that we made the decision not to enter in 2014. So nothing has changed from that point of view.
Why is there such a sharp difference between the kind of expert opinions you are presenting and the kind of expert, and I'm sorry, it's 30 seconds, I hadn't realised we were so close to news. In fact, look, let's reconvene on this tomorrow, I think. When will the robot go down? Can you give me the date on that?
No, I can't give you a definitive date now, no.
Okay. Tony, would you mind if we talk to you again tomorrow?
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. I apologise that we took you so close to news. There's so much to discuss, but we do appreciate you coming on. That Solid Energy CEO, Tony King, joining us quite unexpectedly. That statement's only come out in the past hour or so, and we thank him for his availability.
RNZ News at 6. Ngā mihi nui, good evening, ko Katrina Batanaho. One person has been confirmed dead and 8 others are in hospital after a van was driven into a group of worshippers near a mosque in North London. A 48-year-old man, believed to be the driver, has been arrested after being tackled to the ground and restrained by passers-by. From London, the ABC's Lisa Miller reports.
Police have described it as a major incident, and Muslim leaders say it was a terrorist act aimed at their worshippers as they were leaving evening prayers shortly after midnight. Witnesses said a group of people caring for an elderly man who'd fallen ill were hit.
I just saw people on the floor, people running left, people running right, it was chaos.
The British Prime Minister described it as a terrible incident, while the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn expressed his shock and sorrow.
Lisa Miller. The Prime Minister, Theresa May, has now confirmed that the police are treating the incident as a potential terrorist attack. A 16-year-old with a pre-existing brain condition spent 3 nights in police cells because Oranga Tamariki failed to find him a suitable bed. The teenager's case was called at the Waitakere Youth Court today, where Judge Lisa Tremewan said she would not remand him back into police custody. Edward Gay reports.
While in custody, the teenager had 2 seizures and had to be taken by ambulance to hospital. The police prosecutor, Senior Sergeant Terry Burke, said he had to be watched 24 hours a day by a constable and shouldn't have spent any time in custody, let alone a whole weekend. The teenager's lawyer, Frank Godinay, said his client fell through the cracks of the Ministry and Mental Health Services. The Ministry said social workers spent hours unsuccessfully trying to find an appropriate bed at the weekend, but one was found this afternoon at a secure forensic unit for young people in Porirua. Judge Lisa Tremewan said the resource level doesn't match the hard work put in by the social workers, and the existing policy needs to be closely considered. I Tamaki Makoto ko Edward Gay aho.
Solid Energy says it will send a 5th robot into the Pike River mine, but the entry will take months to organise. It says that having had 2 meetings with interested parties, including technical experts, officials and an advisor to the Pike River families, it's decided the best option is to send down a robot modified to fit a 150mm borehole. It says there are already 4 abandoned robots in the mine, and this one will have to have its aluminium body replaced before it can go in. If possible, a gas monitor will also be fitted to it. Solid Energy says once the re-entry plan is signed off, it will take another 3 to 4 months to modify the robot and decide where to drill the boreholes, as using the existing one isn't feasible. The company says it's giving the families fortnightly updates. The government says it has no intention of conducting any more large-scale pay equity talks, given there's now a clear process others can follow. Unions today lodged a claim for community mental health workers with the Employment Relations Authority, seeking pay parity with their colleagues in the disability and aged care sectors. From July the 1st, the latter will get big pay rises as a result of this year's pay equity settlement. The Prime Minister, Bill English, says the coverage of the historic settlement was determined after negotiations between the unions and the Ministry of Health.
I don't think you should see it as a strong view about who should be able to think about pay equity claims or not. It was just a practical limit. And of course, as soon as you draw a limit, there are groups just outside it, and those couple of those groups have put their hands up in the last few days.
The Prime Minister, Bill English. The first oysters to be removed from Stewart Island today in a bid to stop the spread of a parasite have arrived in Bluff for transportation to a landfill. The Ministry for Primary Industries ordered a cull of all the flat oysters in Big Glory Bay after finding the parasite at 2 farms in the area last month. Our reporter Maya Burry has been in Bluff.
This morning, the first caged oysters were pulled out of Big Glory Bay before being disinfected and sent on a freight boat to Bluff, which arrived in the port town late this afternoon. The oysters will be loaded onto trucks and transported to a landfill nearby, where they will be dumped and covered. An MPI spokesperson, Andrew Sander, says the ministry is holding community meetings about the removal operation on Stewart Island tomorrow evening and in Bluff on Wednesday. This is Maya Burry.
A 45-year-old man has been arrested and charged with murdering Kim Richmond. Ms Richmond's ute with her body inside was recovered from Lake Arapuni in South Waikato last week. The 42-year-old went missing in July last year. The police say they've told Ms Richmond's family of the arrest. The man will appear in court tomorrow morning. It's 6:05. Sport. Oracle Team USA say they'll review their entire setup during the 5 days they have off before the next America's Cup races in Bermuda. With Team New Zealand picking up 2 more wins today, the defenders are 3-0 down in the race to 7 wins. Skipper Jimmy Spittle says these are the most important 5 days of the campaign.
Looks like we've got some good sailing days coming up and we'll be into 24-hour shifts. This isn't our first rodeo. We've been in this position before and we've had less time before. So we've got 5 important days and we'll be using every single hour of them.
Jimmy Spittle. American Brooks Koepka has bagged his first major golf championship with a 4-shot US Open win in Wisconsin. With a final round 5 under par 67, he finished 16 under par for the tournament, heading off countryman Brian Harman and Japan's world number 4 Hideki Matsuyama, who tied for second. He says despite his healthy lead, he kept a close eye on the leaderboard as the final round unfolded.
I mean, it's kind of hard to miss. There's one on every hole, so I knew where I stood. I was trying to get it as low as I could. It was something that I thought was important, just to stay focused and keep the pedal down.
Brooks Koepka, golf's 7th consecutive first-time major winner. And the Warriors' assistant coach Steve McNamara has been granted an early release just 14 games into his contract so he can take up a job in the English Super League. That's the news.
Coming up on Nights this week, Oren Falk on the challenge of creating an authentic historical drama, especially when that drama involves Vikings. Eileen Webb is tackling elder abuse in Australia. David Coles presents A History of Colour. Our overseas correspondent Lian Huang is on the line from Vietnam. Charlotte Wilson shares a few new classical releases with us. And we have a Sonic Tonic dedicated to midwinter, because it is, on Nights with me, Brian Crump, after the news at 7 on RNZ National.
Met service weather now through to midnight tomorrow. Northland, occasional showers, possibly heavy tomorrow. Auckland and Coromandel Peninsula, often cloudy today with isolated showers. Fine at first tomorrow, but a few showers possible from afternoon. Waikato to Taranaki, also Bay of Plenty in the central high country, mostly cloudy with isolated showers, becoming fine this evening, and it'll be fine tomorrow. Gisborne to Wairarapa, cloudy periods and isolated showers spreading north today, becoming fine tomorrow morning. Whanganui to Wellington, also Nelson and Marlborough, a few showers developing with a southerly change this afternoon and evening, fine tomorrow. Canterbury, cloudy periods becoming fine tonight. Bulla and Westland, showers clearing south of Hokitika this afternoon and elsewhere tomorrow morning. And Fiordland, Southland and Otago, mainly fine. A few showers about Fiordland tomorrow, and the Chatham Islands, a few showers clearing tomorrow. It is 6:08 and you're listening to Checkpoint.
Thanks so much, Katrina. Let's return to London, where a van has ploughed into worshippers, leaving a London mosque, killing at least one person in what police are treating as a potential terrorist attack. It is being investigated by the anti-terror squad. Up to 8 people were injured in the collision just after midnight outside the Finsbury Park Mosque in North London. The Muslim Council of Britain says the driver deliberately targeted worshippers as they left after late-night Ramadan services. One man is in custody. Witnesses say he was tackled to the ground and held until police arrived. Elizabeth Brown reports.
Cynthia Van Zeller, who lives in a flat near the Finsbury Park Mosque in Seven Sisters Road, says she was woken by shouting and screaming in the middle of the night.
I saw a lot of people injured. I saw at least 2 on the floor. One of them, I think, maybe was really, really bad hurt because I saw a police officer doing cardiac massage. So I'm guessing that at least one of them was really, really bad hurt.
Hilary Briffa lives right across the road from where the drama unfolded.
I got home at around midnight, and very shortly after getting home, just from the windows I started hearing a lot of yelling and screeching and a lot of chaos outside. So I went down and ran down the street to see what was happening, and everybody was shouting, "There's a van's hit people, and basically there was this white van stopped outside Finsbury Park Mosque that seems to have hit people who were coming out after prayers had finished.
Dozens of armed police are now on the streets around Finsbury Park, and the whole area is cordoned off. Mohammed and Fabian, who were passing by just as the van rammed into the crowd, are in no doubt the driver was targeting Muslims.
Suddenly I heard a loud bang, come outside, literally saw 2 guys in the front. One guy looked, he was cracked off his face, but he really looked white. After that, I just saw people on the floor, people running left, people running right, it was chaos. It looked straight like it was towards Muslims. It was basically the target that people were going to walk up.
He basically drove on the pavement, coming straight towards all the Muslims, and as he's coming to them, he hit all of them, and I think one of them died.
One of them died straight away.
One of them died, and then the rest are in a bad condition.
These men were also passing by the mosque on their way to the Finsbury Park tube station. They agree it appears to be a very deliberate attack.
There was a lot of people. If you was there, so you would have looked around it. Bodies everywhere. People on the floor. Bodies. And I'll say around 10. This cannot be an accident.
The road that he turned into is a dead end.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. So there's nothing at the end of that road.
The driver of the car is in police custody. He was restrained and held by passers-by. One of those who took action was Abdurrahman Saleh Al-Moudi. He says the man was screaming he was going to kill Muslims before he was tackled to the ground.
When we managed to get him on the floor, and then he's saying, "Oh, kill me, kill me." I said, "We're not going to kill you. Why did you do that? Why did you do that?" He wouldn't say anything. And then police came after maybe... It took half an hour. Half an hour. I had to keep him at least half an hour. He was a strong guy. He had a build-up, big man. He was in his 45 to 50s. He's very tall.
London police say the 48-year-old man they've arrested will be given a mental health assessment. Britain has been rocked by a series of recent terror incidents. Increasingly, they've involved vehicles and innocent pedestrians. The British Prime Minister Theresa May says her thoughts are with all those injured in what she calls a terrible incident, and she'll chair an emergency response meeting later today. For Checkpoint, Elizabeth Brown.
12 minutes past 6, 6.5 years after the explosion that killed 29 men in the Pike River mine. The decision to not prosecute the mine's CEO at the time, Peter Whittle, is to be contested in the Supreme Court. The law here is somewhat convoluted in the telling. When Peter Whittle's insurer paid $3.4 million to go to the victims' families in 2013, WorkSafe New Zealand dropped its charges against him. Whittle, who repeatedly declines invitations to be interviewed and doesn't even return our calls, had been facing 12 charges. In the end, he faced none. Sonia Rockhouse, who lost her son Ben, and Anna Osborne, who lost her husband Milton, have argued the money was a stifling payment and the charges should have proceeded. Their lawyer is Nigel Hampton QC. Given this has gone through the High Court and the Appeal Court, I asked Nigel Hampton what grounds they're going to the Supreme Court on.
It's become increasingly narrowed as we've gone up through the levels of court. The one point that we are now taking to the court is, was the Court of Appeal wrong in saying that this was just a voluntary payment on the side, or are we correct in the argument for Anna and Sonia that this was indeed a bargain between Mr. Whittle on the one hand and WorkSafe on the other, and was it an unlawful bargain because part of the bargain was payment of $3.41 million, which in effect was to make the prosecution go away. We say that was a stifling and unlawful agreement, and that's the issue.
And once the $3.4 million was volunteered via Mr. Whittle, courtesy of his insurance company, the prosecution did go away, didn't it?
It did. We say, you know, it waddles like a bargain, it cracks like a bargain, it is a bargain.
Speaking as a representative of the families, their legal counsel, do you think that decision in the district court to not prosecute Peter Whittle was the correct one?
Well, it goes further back than the district court. It goes back to the decision made by the prosecution, that is WorkSafe, not to proceed further with the prosecution. Having chosen to bring a prosecution, and therefore the police having shut their file, and having chosen to bring a prosecution, and because of the time lapse, if they failed to bring it to fruition, people like Anna and Sonia couldn't bring a private prosecution. Having started out, they then made a wrong decision to, in effect, offer no evidence and say the charges should be dismissed. That's the wrongness. That's the target decision that we're taking to the Supreme Court.
And so that's WorkSafe. And in a sense, the poor district court judge, gosh, I wish I hadn't used that word, the district court judge found herself between a rock and a hard place. If no prosecution was being offered, there wasn't much she could do?
There was little options, effective, that she had. We did argue that she should have exercised an independent mind, but that is a very difficult proposition, and that's sort of fallen away. We're now just concentrated on the main proposition. In the High Court, the High Court judge said that in these circumstances, a court could not review a prosecutor's decision. It was a discretion exercisable by the prosecutor and would not be interfered with by a court. In the Court of Appeal, we said that was wrong, that it could be interfered with. The Court of Appeal agreed, but then determined that this wasn't a bargain as such, but just a voluntary payment on the side, and therefore there was nothing wrong with it as such. And it's from that determination that we now move to the Supreme Court with the simple issue, with the Court of Appeal right or wrong in saying that.
And as you work your way to the Supreme Court, the fact remains that 29 people died in a workplace accident and no one has ever been prosecuted for that.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, WorkSafe took up the cudgels for a start, then dropped it. The police, in the meantime, had dropped their prosecution. The families, because of the affliction of time, could no longer bring a private prosecution. So, therefore, no one held accountable.
Nigel Hampton, QC, talking to us earlier. Team New Zealand has ramped up the pressure on defending champions Oracle Team USA with their fourth successive win in the America's Cup to go 3 up. Yes, the mess doesn't make any sense to us either. The team continued to excel in light wind sailing and again showed superior speed and slick manoeuvres, whipping their 50-foot foiling catamaran around the course at a speed of up to 38.5 k. Helmsman Peter Burling, still aged only 26, won the starts in both the third and fourth races as he had on Saturday. Both teams sailed well with few mistakes today, but the real difference in performance was purely down to speed. Despite the wins, Burling says his team, Team New Zealand, can still make improvements.
Yeah, well, I think today, was a really good day for us, and we definitely, feel like we improved a lot on yesterday. We tidied up a lot of those little errors that we made. Yesterday around the course, and I think that really showed out there. And our team's really hungry to keep learning, keep moving forward, keep improving.
As we know, of course, Spittle is no stranger to adversity. He and his team made one of the biggest ever comebacks in sporting history when they rallied from 8-1 down against New Zealand to win the old mug in San Francisco in 2013. The winner, the first to 9, Spittle, says with a 5-day gap until the next races, Oracle will work 24 hours a day with their design and technical team to improve their boat speed as they seek to match New Zealand's edge.
Well, sure. I mean, the guys are disappointed. We wanted a race win today. We've proved we can win races against these guys. We topped the qualifying series for a reason, I think. But clearly these guys have made a step between that time. So now we've got an opportunity. We've got an opportunity of 5 days to respond. This team's been here before. We've been in a tough situation before. We've had to overcome, a lot of different challenges, and now we've got to respond. So, this is the group to respond because we've got the confidence that we can do it.
The teams will race again on Sunday morning, New Zealand time. It's 90 minutes past 6. One of the creators of the first Chinese-made anti-crime advertisement in New Zealand says the country is becoming something of a criminal paradise. Taylor Law says the video, which has had nearly 15,000 hits on Chinese social media network WeChat since its release 2 days ago, is a plea to the government to help Asian victims of crime. Jessie Chang has more.
New Zealand is not safe anymore.
我的家被人破门而入。3个房间的电视机给偷了，打烊的时候就进来，直接抢钱了。
They do whatever they want, then
hurt or even kill.
Tyler Law says he knows many Asians who love living here, but they're becoming increasingly afraid of crime. The director of the Chinese production company Iconic New Zealand says recent attacks on Asians prompted him to make the video to give a platform for victims to be heard.
I live in New Zealand for near 4 years. And my family and I really like this country. But now I'm very afraid about crime, so I need to do something to stop it. I want to try, and I will keep doing these things.
Mr. Law says often Asian victims don't know what to do during an attack or don't know how to get help. The president of the New Zealand Chinese Association and Gisborne Mayor, Meng Foon, agrees.
A lot of people don't know actually what to do when they are confronted. A lot of people are putting their lives at risk. So there needs to be a process and a structure from mainly the police, because they're the ones that deal with this sort of stuff, and if they can give some advice to the shopkeepers, then that will be tremendously helpful.
Mr. Foon says dairy owners and small business owners, many whom are Asian, have been targeted by thieves recently. He says it's intolerable that they get singled out.
There's not a lot of respect for shopkeepers generally, but there is a target towards Asian shopkeepers, Chinese, Indians, different Asian ethnicities, and they're just taking advantage of that.
Mr. Law says this is an election issue, and he's waiting to see how the different political parties respond.
After this, I want to interview the leader of the party. I want to talk with them about this thing, how to change this.
Mr. Law says everyone should be able to feel safe in New Zealand, and there's been enough crime against Asians.
Crime needs to go down. It's enough.
it's enough.
That is enough.
We are enough. We don't want to be victims anymore.
For Checkpoint, call Jessie Chang, Aho.
Let's go to France now, where President Emmanuel Macron is headed towards a strong victory in the country's parliamentary elections, with nearly all the votes counted. Mr. Macron's En Marche party and its allies have captured more than half of the available seats. It's been a horrid night for the Socialist Party, who lost the presidency in May and have seen their support drop into single digits in the parliamentary elections. With more, here's the ABC's Angus Randall.
Emmanuel Macron's rewriting of France's political landscape continues. After he swept to the presidency, his newly formed party En Marche will take charge of the country's parliament.
Le triomphe d'Emmanuel Macron est incontestable.
Emmanuel Macron's triumph is unquestionable. The left's defeat is unavoidable. The rout of the Socialist Party is irrevocable.
Sont relégués aux marges. The Socialists spent 5 years in power under President François Hollande, but are now consigned to the fringes of Parliament with less than 10% of the vote. The leader of the party, Jean-Christophe Campbell, has already stepped down.
La gauche doit tout changer.
The left needs to change everything, its form and its substance, its ideas and its organisation. The left must turn the page.
En Marche now appears to have a mandate to push through pro-European Union, pro-business reforms. It's an amazing achievement for a party which was founded just over a year ago. The party president, Catherine Barbaro, is glad to see a more diverse range of voices in Parliament.
For the first time in the Fifth Republic, the Parliament will be profoundly renewed, more diverse, younger, with various professional, political and civil society experiences.
The far-right National Front Party looks set to get at least 6 seats, although it was aiming for 15. The party's president, Marine Le Pen, will take a seat in the French Parliament for the first time.
We're the only force to resist the dilution of France, of its social model and its identity. We are and we will stay the faithful defenders of the French people.
The elections have been marked by a record drop in voter turnout. The Interior Ministry says only around 43% of voters bothered to show up, 2 points lower than the previous poll 5 years ago. This voter is glad to see the president given the support he needs to pursue his agenda.
Yes, one of my fears after the first round of the presidential election was that Macron would not get enough of a majority in the parliamentary election. I thought that was the main problem. But having seen the results of the first round of the parliamentary election, I think the French people are being responsible and giving a clear mandate to the new president.
That report from the ABC's Angus Randall. Feedback coming in on Solid Energy and Pike River. We always get a lot of it when we cover the story. What are Solid Energy worried we will see in Pike River? Were shortcuts made in safety? Was it possible more miners nearly made it out? Why put off sending in the robot? How much of the footage will be made public? Somebody needs to oversee these procedures so we get the truth at last. Thank you so much for that feedback. Remember, of course, that Pike River wasn't a Solid Energy mine at the time. Quite a different company. It's now owned by Solid Energy, but it was completely separate when the explosion occurred. And we will reconvene our conversation with Solid Energy CEO Tony King on Checkpoint tomorrow night. It's 6:25 exactly. Let's go back to Bermuda, because it may be that, in fact, touch wood, and I am tempting fate here and I unreservedly apologise, the America's Cup is about to become New Zealand's Cup again, to quote those immortal words of Peter Montgomery. Well, how's the economic benefit for the hosts in Bermuda? Depends who you talk to. A Bermudan couple's new pizza business could be one of the economic legacies of the Mid-Atlantic Islands hosting of the America's Cup. Some locals are unhappy at the government's decision to spend up to $110 million, $110 million hosting the Cup, when social infrastructure such as schooling is crying out for more funding. The government hopes for a lasting economic boost from all the people there, and one of them is Todd Nile. Although armed as he is with an RNZ credit card, he won't be spending very much, but he caught up with the school principal turned pizza maker at the Cup Village.
There's pretty much always a queue outside Tim Jackson's pizza marquee at the Cup Village. The middle school principal and his wife decided 2 years ago on a change of direction for family reasons, and that's where the Cup came in.
When we began the process of brainstorming what type of business we wanted to start, it was announced by the government that the 35th America's Cup would be hosted right here in Bermuda. And we thought that it would be a wonderful opportunity for us to debut our company, J&B's Wood Fired Pizza. We went through the process of applying, and we were successful in being selected as one of the food vendors for this year's America's Cup.
So this has kick-started your business, really?
Yes, it's kick-started the business. We've gotten rave reviews, wonderful feedback, great feedback to continue to fine-tune what we do as a business. So it's been very, very successful thus far.
The success doesn't come easy, but with nearly a dozen staff rotating through the roster, the benefits of a new business are being shared. So what does a former school principal think of the debate on where government money should be spent?
I think it's definitely important that all schools, all public schools have the vital resources that they need to ensure that our students are moving in a forward direction. So I would definitely say that needs to be prioritized. Education for all students needs to be a top priority. And on the same hand, once you prioritize that, economic development for the island of Bermuda needs to be a priority as well. So I think it's a matter of prioritizing what's most important. It doesn't have to be either or. It's just priority. If education is a top priority, that needs to be developed fully, and then we can also engage in economic development to spur on the economy here in Bermuda.
Whether or not the Cup stays in Bermuda, Tim Jackson's already pondering what the future is for his mobile pizza business.
That's a very good question. A number of locals, a number of Bermudians have inquired about what we'll be doing beyond America's Cup, and we're in the process of trying to decide where we'll be located. Will we be in the city of Hamilton? Will we be located at one of the beaches? Will we have pizza day at the respective schools for all of the schools? So we're in the process of trying to develop locations throughout the island.
In the meantime, there's plenty of hungry Cup fans waiting for a slice of wood-fired economic development. In Bermuda, mo te hotaka o te ahiahi, ko Todd Nile tēnei.
And that wood-fired economic development, Todd, looked very good indeed. Lovely crispy base. Lots of people saying, how come Team New Zealand have won 4 races and are only 3-0 up? Well, far be it from us to justify these rules because it's really inexplicable and odd. In fact, our friends in the New Zealand Herald are calling it the worst rule in sport. But effectively, Oracle, because they went through stage 1 of the Challenger Series, and yes, the defender was in the Challenger Series because Oracle get to write the rules, so they put themselves in there. Because they were undefeated, they took a bonus point through. So instead of New Zealand having 4 points, Emirates Team New Zealand only have 3 points because Oracle wrote the rules. It has to be said in Oracle's defence, and I'm reluctant often to publicly express any defence of Oracle, had Team New Zealand gone through undefeated, they would have had the bonus point too. It's just that they had more rounds. Does that make any sense? I suspect it doesn't. But the America's Cup is an extraordinary sporting event in which the host, the holder, gets to write the rules. And that's really unsatisfactory explanation for which I apologise, brings Checkpoint to a close for tonight. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your company and your feedback, even if I didn't deal with the America's Cup feedback very well. We'll be back tomorrow at 5.
RNZ News headlines at 6:30. One man is dead after a van was driven into worshippers near a London mosque. A 16-year-old with a pre-existing brain injury spent 3 nights in police cells because officials couldn't find a suitable bed. A 5th robot is to be sent into the Pike River mine, but will take months to set up. A man has been charged with murder after a woman's ute with her body inside was found in a Waikato lake last week. And the first oysters to be removed from Stewart Island in a bid to stop the spread of a parasite are on their way to a landfill. Our next news and weather is at 7. If you think RNZ has breached formal standards either on air or in our online content, you have the right to make a formal complaint. This must be made in writing to the broadcaster first, within 20 working days of the broadcast. To find out about those standards or to lodge a complaint, go to rnz.co.nz